So, first of all, these are candidates for State House District 1, but they're not in the primary, not actually opposing each other. It's not until the general, because Boice, to my right, is a Republican running for State House District 1. He is a businessman, former Curry County Commissioner, and member of the State Marine Board, who was appointed to represent District 1 as state representative in 2023. He has served on multiple boards and government commissions, including as chair of the Oregon Coast Zone Management Association. The Democrat up here is Bret Cecil. During his working life, Bret Cecil was a farmer and rancher, builder, lab tech, and missionary. Since his retirement to Port Orford, he has devoted his time to engaging with Curry County politics. He says that since he did not have an opportunity for service in the military or other forms of public service, he is honored at the prospect of representing his community in State House District 1. And with that, we are going to let the candidates introduce themselves, and then I'll start with the questions, and we're going to have Boice alphabetically go first.
Well, thank you. Boice, State Rep, District 1, Coos, Curry, and Douglas counties. You're all here because you care. Our country's in a lot of trouble, I think, and the state of Oregon has some tremendous issues and problems that we have to solve. But we also have some incredible opportunities. My grandfather and my grandmother were both born just about 15 or 16 miles from here. They had 12 children. My dad was a famous sheriff, famous lawman. My grandfather was the longest serving Curry County Commissioner of all time. Growing up as a kid, abandoned, 1936, burned to the ground. Brock Smith for 12 years, myself for 8 years, we've been working on gorse funding, gorse eradication, every spare moment we've got. That's just one of many responsibilities that we've had. My wife and I took a long time to decide if we were going to go to the state capitol because my county needed me, and still does, but in our decision, we decided that that's how we could best serve. And somebody said, well, you might end up being a career politician. Well, the first time I ran for public office, I was 61 maybe. So no, I'm not a career politician. But like people here, you care, your hearts are involved. And so I consider it a tremendous privilege to be here, a tremendous privilege to represent you. Even my enemies seem to have peace with me. I don't really have any bad enemies, but you know, people say, well, you work with Democrats? Yeah, how am I going to go to Salem and best serve the interests of the people I represent if I don't have an open door policy with the governor and her staff? And I'll walk 2 miles if they'll walk 100 yards. And I have that record, and that's what I do, and that's what I think I have to do. We have so many problems, so I put pride aside, I put ego aside, do my best, and more later. Thank you for that, Tim.
Thank you all for coming this evening. It's good to see some familiar faces and some I don't know yet. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this together for us. It's a great service that they do, especially the Coos County chapter, for bringing us all together so we can be better informed on how we vote and who our representatives will be. My name is Bret Cecil. I'm a 7-year resident of Port Orford in Curry County. Most of you know Port Orford. We're next door neighbors. As I said, I've been there about 7 years, and I got involved in local politics. It's been a few years ago. I believe we were having some difficulties around COVID at the time. And for some reason, I thought I needed to get myself involved in county politics. Well, COVID was going on, and the thing that really piqued my interest was that our county health department had been scrapped by our county commissioners. I was concerned about that, and I was concerned about the well-being of my friends and neighbors and Oregonians as well, but people that lived in my county. What were we going to do as far as taking care of ourselves? So I spent as much time as I could helping other folks figure out how to protect themselves and their families and make sure that they were as well taken care of by by our county and our state as we possibly could do, just to get the information to everyone. As we all remember, it was a really difficult time. So that was my beginning with local politics. And my interest in coming to the State House is that I feel that I give a different voice to what we already have in our State House at this time. Like I said, many of us know each other, but I would like to make sure that you have full representation in the State House. We kind of went through a bit of a cascade in our county, in Curry County, of appointment and resignation, and then appointments and reappointments and reappointments. So we currently have quite a few people up for election that were never elected, were all appointed to their seats. And I want to make sure that you get to pick who your elected representative is. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your questions.
And the first question will be addressed first to Mr. Cecil. What skills and experience qualify you for the office of state representative?
Well, I have worked in medicine, veterinary, and human. I've worked in aerospace and done quite a bit of computer background type work. And as was mentioned, I was also a farmer rancher, so I like to get dirt under my fingernails. Those are all things that I think are important to us, and a lot of us in the district want to make sure that we have a representative that will show us who he is and stand up for us and make sure that we're represented, and that I, as your representative, carry your voice to the State House and not just have you hear about things after the fact. So, and one of the things that I look forward to doing and pledging to do is to make sure that I have a one-on-one with everybody in each county at least once a year. Some type of town hall, some setting similar to this, that we have an opportunity to speak with each other. Because it's one of the things that I've missed with our local electeds. We get that often from our U.S. senators are really good about getting everybody together. I really appreciate those meetings, and I miss them from our state representatives. And I do make that promise to work on making that happen in the future.
By the way, I ordered the yellow sign. University of Adversity. I was an employer for 35 years. First one to work, last one to leave, last one to get paid. I grew up on Rogue River, and that's where I raised my 3 sons. I missed Vietnam by just
Recording in progress.
It's the Wi-Fi coming in and out. That's
No
why-
worries here, no worries here. So the point is, I think nobody owes more than me, and my number one issue is veterans. And I want to be, of the 90 legislators, no one works harder for the veterans or is more dedicated. My father was one of the first American GIs into Hiroshima after the bombs were dropped. Unbelievable, the stories he had as a 19-year-old corporal. The poor Japanese peasants thought the worst was coming. American soldiers, of course, despite what happened in the Philippine Islands, the Bataan Death March of our American soldiers, the Americans treated the Japanese civilian with respect and honor. So I lived this life on Rogue River, and I made many friends. I made many friends in the counties, all these counties. I hope nobody knows this district better than I do. Winston Dillard at I-5, all the way through east side of Coos Bay, all the way down to the California-Oregon border. That's quite a responsibility, but it's also, again, quite a privilege. So all the committees I've been on over the years, I was a legislative assistant, served on the Marine Corps 8 years. I used to take governors and secretaries of state, all that upriver, and learned all that I could from them, made a lot of friends. Tremendous, tremendous honor. So I just didn't ever want to go in politics. I want to stay in business, and yet I have 9 grandkids. That'll motivate you really quick to do the right thing and to be involved. You heard earlier tonight from one of the Senate candidates that it's all about relationships. You need to learn everything you can about state agencies. You need to learn everything you can about the other party, their staffs, and you need to be there. You need to prepare, and it is a full-time job. I have the energy, and I want to do at least one more term. Thank you.
All right, and the next question will be addressed first to you. What are your priority goals if elected?
safety immediately comes. We see in the streets of even our rural communities. We don't just want safer streets, we want safe streets. You start by getting rid of drugs. This experiment that Oregon did is destroying the lives of our kids. It is making law enforcement job an absolute, we can't even recruit. You know, when it comes to public safety, I mentioned my father was a sheriff, and my son was a lieutenant with the OSPs in charge of all of Southern Oregon, 7 counties drug enforcement. The stories he tells, what he's up against, you know, they need that support. We had the same number of state police that we had in 1970. We have double the population, 300 give or take. We don't have enough detectives, we don't have enough district attorneys. We have twice the number of public defenders in the state of Oregon we do district attorneys. Kids coming out of college with law degrees, they don't want to fight crime. We've got to change that immediately. Public safety is number 1, veterans number 2. I've been involved in wildfire for the last 20 years. When I had my lodge, it could have burned down. It was amazing that it did. The Biscuit Fire and in Curry County, probably I'm going to run out of time, but we can talk about that. I'm having a fire meeting. I'm calling myself statewide fire meeting for the 28th of May. If you're interested, let me know. Oregon Emergency Management will be there, the governor's office, BLM, Forest Service, Oregon Department of Forestry. I just left a meeting 3 days ago to Douglas County Forest Protective. I was there and worked with them for 3 hours. I've been in every fire. Last August, I had 3 fires in Curry County. I had 6 in Douglas County. Thank goodness none in Coos County. Okay, but the gorse comes up, and that is an issue, and we have to be prepared. That's the reason for that meeting on the 28th. I've worked extremely hard with the 90 legislators. I don't want anybody to know more about wildfire than I do. It's the greatest public safety issue that we're faced with, in my view. Thank you again.
And the same question to you, what are your priority goals if elected?
Well, beginning at the top of the heap, fresh water and sanitation is something that I'm really concerned with. Living in Port Orford, we've had some issues around water delivery and sanitation handling. And I know that there's infrastructure. We hear a lot about infrastructure, that there's money for us to be had on that. That's something I definitely want to work on. Additionally, housing. Building our housing stocks. We just have a shortage of homes, places for people to live. And I know in my town in Port Orford, the difficulty we have is we don't have the supply of water and sanitation to provide so that we can build more homes. All of these things are going to happen all around the same time. Our small business development is something that's very important to me, because small businesses employ oodles of people all through the district and all through our local counties. And I believe that they're kind of getting left behind. Part of our difficulty is retaining employees. The other difficulty is getting people to move here. Again, backing up to housing. It's difficult to find places for them to be. And again, we have difficulty in creating housing stock because we have shortage of fresh water services and sanitation services. So those things keep stacking up in my mind. Child care is another issue that we have if we want to get into small business and getting people working and supporting themselves and having the capability of paying for a home or paying rent. They may need to be able to put their children in a safe place to have them taken care of while they're at work. And then lastly, one of my major points I want to work on, and I agree with Mr. Boice, is public safety. My concern with public safety might be leaning a bit more toward preparing us more around the Cascadia event that all of us know at some point is going to happen. And I know I don't hear enough, I don't think I hear enough about it and what we're going to do as far as how to handle ourselves when that situation occurs. Wildfires, we're kind of getting that together, but I think we need to pay attention to that part of our safety issues. Thank you.
And the next question will go to you first. And that question is, one bill that failed in the state legislature this spring would have provided funding for mental health and addiction services in schools. Do you support or oppose such a measure?
I support such a measure. I think this is one of the things that we're going to have to do to handle drug use and our homeless populations, a lot of those things come from mental health situations. And we're talking about help in schools. So getting our hands on kids that may need help mental health wise before they're out into the population, and so that they can get a proper education and finish their high school requirements so they can become upstanding citizens in our local society. I think that's a really important thing for us to consider, and I do support that.
Excuse me, is this 2 minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Child care, I supported that. Our workforce is so thin. Supporting families, despite that takes the mother out of the home, that's what we got to do right now. But the breakdown in families in our culture cannot be overlooked. And schools are contributing to that. Not teachers, but the what some of my friends call Portlandia, their philosophy on schools. The teachers are doing their best for the most part, but programming our families that absolutely collapse. Dad's not in the home. We're pushing marijuana on our kids at an early age. We got a program to tell them to be tobacco free, but because marijuana is such a big cash crop for the state of Oregon, we're not telling our kids the dangers to their brain development, their lung capacity, their attitude, everything. It's got to be, you know, the guy that's on his back porch after work, who cares? It's not a big deal, but these kids are getting bombarded, and I'm strongly opposed to that. Port Orford, I have 8 cities with 1,000 or more people. We got a $760,000 grant in the 2023 session for the city of Port Orford. We've got, just recently, we got, on this session, we got $5.5 million for Adapt Healthcare, which covers our entire district. Here's the big one. Back to veterans. David Brock-Smith has worked for years, and we finally got it done. And Douglas County Commissioners, $35 million for the veterans home that matches the home in the Dalles in Lebanon. We finally got it done. That's just a $35 million match for the $100 million that the federal government will do. So that was one of our biggest wins in a long, long time. Oregon Coast Community Action, and then that was $400,000. Then we got $10 million for the Curry County Courthouse. And this next full session will be focused on Coos County and Douglas County. Thank you again.
All right, so the next question goes to you first. And that question is, what, if any, changes to Oregon's election law would you support?
If you feel like undocumented or illegal immigrants should automatically have the right to vote, then I'm probably not your representative, okay? There is so many parts of that are wrong for the taxpayers. By the way, I've been endorsed by the Oregon Taxpayers Association, Oregon Forest and Industry Council. I mean, there's quite a list. National Federation of Independent Business. But from the taxpayer perspective, we cannot continue the mixed up priority in spending. It is so damaging to the future generations. Just look at the federal debt that we have, $34 trillion. Pause and consider what that's going to do to our grandkids and great-grandkids. We've got to push back. Prioritize spending in the state of Oregon. We constantly, from the rural perspective, whether it's the coast of Oregon, the northern Columbia Basin, the Eastern Oregon Commissioners, rural Oregon is always getting left out, always having to battle for a reasonable and fair share in our schools, in our public safety, all that. And I have a reputation of fighting in the right way. I'm right there in their, right at their doorstep, including the governor's office. I just testified on the LH State Forest less than 2 weeks ago to the governor, the Secretary of State, and the treasurer. And that's 90,000 acres, publicly owned, that's ultimately sooner or later will burn. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. I am there. I'm the only representative or senator that testified. No, there's one other state rep. And we got the word out. We've got to change that policy. We can talk more about that later.
Mr. Cecil, do you need me to repeat the question?
Please.
What, if any, changes to Oregon's election law would you support?
Actually, I have a really quick, easy answer on that. I support our election laws the way they are. I think our vote and mail system is far beyond anyone else's voting system in any other state. I think our security is very high. I had an opportunity today to speak with high school students about registering to vote. I was amazed at how many of them knew that they were already registered to vote. They knew about the voter program. Some of them had chosen a party, but that wasn't why we were there. We were there to make sure that they got registered to vote. I was very impressed by our high school students. So I think our schools are doing a good job. Because of that, they're keeping them well informed of their civic duties. And I personally really appreciate mail-in voting in the state of Oregon. And if there are some improvements that can be made, I'd love to hear about it. But I think we're doing a great job the way it is. Thank you.
And here's a question that's specifically addressed to you, but we'll also let Mr. Boice answer the question. It is, if voters send you to Salem, how will you keep in touch with your constituents so that they know, you know, what their concerns and issues are?
I believe that I addressed that in my opening statement. But one of the things that I do pledge to do is to hold town hall meetings such as this, so the constituents have one-on-one time with me as a state representative, not just to hear a newsletter coming at you whenever you happen to pick up your email, but to actually give you an opportunity to have questions answered and to give your concerns so that I know what's going on. I can take that information back to the State House and work with my colleagues in whatever committees that I happen to be working on to make sure that legislation is developed that supports the needs of those of you that live out in the communities. And I'm not just bringing you something that we think is a good idea for you. That's my position on representation, and I'll take your other questions as they come up. Thank you.
Hey, I apologize for missing that last question. I never want to give you the notion that I duck a question, but on the voting, the first cousin, Secretary of State, she was born in Langlands, Bev Clarno. She was solid on the vote by mail. The problem I have is the state gets bigger. Government gets bigger at the state and federal level. They take the control away from the local counties. We just celebrated with Renee Collin, 37 years Curry County clerk. And so I was there with the new Secretary of State and visited with her and just showed respect and appreciation. She did a tremendous job, highly ethical and dedicated. As far as keeping in touch with the people, I can type really fast and I answer all my own emails. I don't care how long it takes, okay? If you're a constituent, you're gonna get a response from me. I have a phone that, and a great staff. That's one thing about the county. We couldn't afford people. The staff, doesn't matter what party you are, everybody gets equal assistance, and so that's really a good thing. And believe me, they get paid a lot better than we do as legislators. But you know, the social media thing, we're slowly warming up to that, but it's taken me years, and you know, that's another way. But the email is very good, and the thing about being a state rep, you got to run every 2 years, and so sometimes you see yourself going as you're coming, you say, okay, is this rep duties, or am I actually campaigning now? So you want to be honest and direct and forthcoming. It's fun, it's a blast, but it's still part of the process. It's just like U.S. Congress. Every 2 years they got to run. Every 2 years you got to be available to the people. I hope nobody's more accessible than me of the 90 legislators.
All right, the next question goes first to you, Mr. Boice. What is your plan for promoting economic progress in your district?
You know, I was supposed to have a 30-minute interview with Oregon Public Broadcasting Tuesday? What's today? Wednesday. So I'm sorry, yes, thank you, Bret. And it would end up being an hour and 15 minutes. And it was a tremendous pleasure to have young people in their 30s, very bright, very well educated. And so the old river guy, he's saying, hey, this is why I'm here. This is what I hope I can pass on to you when it comes to where your country's going, where your state is failing, where it is succeeding, and how we can change the things that are not working for the future generations. They really picked up on that. They changed their whole format on asking questions. The reason I bring that up is everything that we deal with from a public service level and from a government perspective has to have a lot of research, has to have a lot of give and take. If you just go up there and say, and this is tempting, if you just go up there and say, no, 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 it doesn't work. It can't, you have to fight for majority so we can get control of the gavels. And then what, if the Republicans do that, I can promise you, because I served with 11 women and 13 men, every one of them are dedicated. Every one of them are looking to the future. Every one of them are there full time, wanting to solve problems. Okay? If they, the reason I bring that up is because they will demand themselves be held accountable. Every one of us. It's not about the next election, it's about the next generation. I hope if I do anything to succeed with the people that are here tonight, I need your trust, want your trust more than anything else. And so do those other 24 that I work with. We get control of the committee gavels, we can move some good economic development forward. I served on the Coos Douglas Business Development program forever. Many years, I should say, not forever.
All right, and Mr. Cecil, what is your plan for promoting economic progress in the district?
Well, I think we'll have to break that down to maybe working at the county level in each of the counties. Unfortunately, two of the counties, Coos and Douglas counties, aren't entire counties in the district, so we have very rural areas in those two counties. But we do have all of Curry County, and we do have some cities like Bandon, Port Orford, Brookings, Gold Beach, Winston and Greene, which are further out, Myrtle Point and Coquille, all areas that definitely need to have some economic development. But I think the way that I can communicate that best is to use the tools of the office, which I know a lot of people don't like Facebook. I have a difficult time using it. It overwhelms me and gets me overly involved. But Facebook is a means of communication with our communities. Email is a really good way to do that too. And I enjoy answering emails and communicating with people in that means. I have a phone with a personal phone number on my card that's out on the table, so if anybody would like to take that and place a call to me, I'm willing to talk to you about whatever comes to mind, but economy is something that I'm interested in and I'm still learning about along the Oregon coast. So that's my idea with that. And again, town halls, so that I can speak with people in the communities and hear what their ideas are about economic development, and working with chambers of commerce and some of our main streets and et cetera that are in there on the ground doing the work, finding out what they've got going on and seeing if there's something that I can help out with and apply some assistance there. I do want to keep in mind that working together, not just in the State House as Democrats and Republicans, that's not just in the State House. Out here in our communities, we have to work together as citizens. And I think telling each other no and turning our backs on each other is not the way to develop anything. So if we want to develop our communities, we need to get back to getting to know each other and being friendly with each other and working on our economy as well as our local communities to make them better places for all of us. Thank you.
And the next question goes to you first. Do you support or oppose the federal government's plan to sell leases for wind power development off the Oregon coast, and why?
Boy, I struggle with the answer to that. Every day I'm thinking about this. Because there are so many sides to it, but excuse me, mainly the two sides, yes and no. And I'm trying to keep myself in the middle to look at both sides of the issue. One of my concerns is that if a project of that type with BOEM should go through, that we would have windmills off our coast. What's in it for us? I understand that a lot of that power, even if that happens and it's generated, isn't necessarily going to come to us on the coast. It's going to be shuttled off to other states and other places. But what's in it for us? And if I can, maybe this will come up in another question, but talk about the Coos Bay terminal, the port expansion. I feel the same way with that. I'm kind of in the middle. There are environmental issues that I'm concerned with. There are issues of labor and workforce that I'm concerned with there as well. But what's in it for us in the long run? So I use this example, and I may be a little off base with it, but I know my friends that live in Alaska get a stipend from the state for the oil drilling that happens in their state. Would we possibly have something like that for every kilowatt hour of power that's generated offshore, for every container that's unloaded in Coos Bay? So I don't want to say no to any of those ideas and those projects. I want to keep my mind open to how those could benefit us in the future, but what's the benefit for us as citizens here in the local areas when those things actually take place? Thank you.
Economic development. Learn all you can and more about Salem. There's an anti-business attitude throughout that Capitol campus that is so pervasive. It's not mean people necessarily, but it's people that absolutely don't understand business, and a lot of them don't respect employers, what it means to sign the front of a paycheck. Job creators. Businesses are leaving Oregon by the dozens. The governor, I think, has done a good job. Okay, I'm going to give her high marks. I'll speak up when she does good and when I disagree. In this case, she's tried to develop the whole housing aspect, and I serve on the Housing and Homeless Committee. Proudly, I serve with 5 Democrats and 3 Republicans. Her bill, we lost by 1 Senate vote last year. 1 Senate vote. We basically didn't get anything done in the full session on housing. It's just a crying shame. This year, we got 4 bills done, and I think there's a little bit something to brag about. But when it comes to business, she wants to build 36,000 houses per year, and I think that's good. I think that's a good benchmark. But the builders are leaving because they're overtaxed, overregulated, overburdened. They just want to go out and build good homes and take good care of their customers, keep a safe crew, and their crews are loyal to them. If you ever saw a guy that carries a nail belt, I mean, they're a special breed. I had a contractor's license in 2008 to 2010, worked with some incredible people. I was a little bit over my head, but as the River Lodge, I was a ranch carpenter, and so I learned a lot from those people. So, offshore wind, I could talk about that, my gosh, I've been working on it for 4 years. When you see industry maybe coming into your town, and the tribes can benefit, the fishermen can benefit, okay, I'll come back to that, I'm sorry. Thank you.
So, starting with you, Mr. Boice, the COVID pandemic highlighted the underfunding and lax regulation of senior and nursing facilities in Oregon. Do you have a plan regarding oversight and regulation of these facilities?
Say that again, a couple words dropped off there, my apologies.
Okay, it's a lot of big words. The COVID pandemic highlighted the underfunding and lax regulation of senior and nursing facilities in Oregon. Do you have a plan regarding oversight and regulation of these facilities?
No, I do not have a plan, and frankly, that hasn't come up, and I would like to learn more about that. I actually worked in an assisted living home in Medford for a year. It was just a wonderful experience, but I said, you ought to go do this. It would be great for you. And I'm saying, wow. In fact, I told the governor this. She said, what's one of the most unique times of your life? And I said, I worked in an assisted living for a full year. And I worked with them with weights and exercising, and it was just a tremendous blessing. So I can't be very specific on that, other than to say I know that particular business called Avamere Health in Medford, way overregulated and very tough to get employees. I ended up working overtime, and I didn't really need to work, but I did because it just became a fun responsibility. So that is no small thing, and I appreciate the question. Back to offshore wind, I gave it a chance the first year, okay? In the very best case scenario, we're not going to see it in my lifetime, okay? All the promises, I'll tell you just one aspect of it. I've worked on fishery coverage for 10 years. Went back actually when I was at the lodge, because my business was dependent on steelhead fishermen coming into the lodge. And so we've made a lot of progress, especially with Senator Merkley. And funny thing is, one of my friends told me the other day, you know, orca, the killer whales are about to go on the endangered list, so we got to grow more salmon so we can feed them. First I didn't laugh, you know, but I thought later, okay, it was meant to be funny. The salmon trying to get back in the river, cables on the floor of the ocean, sending off, I mean, we already know it probably is going to negatively impact our navigation system. That's just one thing. So I'm strongly against offshore wind. I gave it all the research that I possibly could. No.
Just to make sure we redirect the conversation.
May I have you repeat
Yes,
that
the question actually was, the COVID pandemic highlighted the underfunding and lax regulation of senior nursing facilities in Oregon. Do you have a plan regarding oversight and regulation of these facilities?
So I've watched in the past year, especially the past 6 months, a number of my personal friends in the town where I live have spouses who are going through memory deficit issues. We're an aging population, and they're having difficulties getting their spouses into a care facility, either because they have too much money or there's some other thing that's keeping them from being able to financially get their spouse into that care. I think that's something we need to look at strongly, especially given where we are. Our population tends to be a little bit more on the elderly side. I believe Port Orford, our median age is 62. So I love that we're a retirement area, but we do have issues that we have to deal with. And not just at Port Orford, but throughout the entire district, I know we have aging to deal with. As far as regulation goes, the question is lax regulation. And I have a concern about always wanting to chop regulation. Seems to be the first thing that everybody wants to do. We need to make it easier for people to build things. We need to make it easier for people to do stuff. I think we need to keep safety in mind, and it's one of the reasons we have regulation in building codes and in having senior housing. Because we need to make sure that senior people aren't mistreated while they're there. And we need to make sure that the facilities that they're in are safe and are well built. So as far as regulation goes, I'm for regulation as long as it doesn't choke the project to death. And underfunding, obviously, that is an issue, and that's what I was talking about. That I know there's got to be some ways that we can, through our state, make some of these facilities more available to people that need them, that probably can't afford them right up front. My understanding is they can run anywhere in the thousands of dollars just to have someone taken care of in a facility of that type. So I definitely will look forward to working on this issue as I move into the State House, and I appreciate the question.
And with that, I think we're just about ready to conclude. So each candidate will have a 1-minute closing statement to advocate for his candidacy, and we're going in reverse orders, so from how we started. So that means Mr. Cecil gets to go first.
I do. As I mentioned, that I have interest in freshwater and sanitation for all of our towns and cities throughout the district. Small business is something that concerns me, housing, and now I've added another thing to my list besides childcare and public safety, is the safety of our seniors and meeting their needs for their care in their last years. I want to make it really clear that I stand for all freedoms for all Americans. And I will stand between anybody who wants to take away freedoms from anybody in our nation. specifically women and their reproductive rights. And I'll stand between anyone and the women in our district to make sure that they get any care that they need. I also want to make sure that our freedom of speech is respected, and all of our freedoms need to be handled and respected properly. So my time is up, but thank you very much for coming and hearing me this evening.
Can't say thank you enough. I'll be going, let's see, Sunday morning I'm going to fly out of Eugene to go to the Arizona border with about 7 or 8 other legislators to look at the tunnels, to meet with a few legislators down there, and learn everything I possibly can, and how I feel it's going to impact people, the 75,000 people I represent here. Get ready for fire season, please. I serve on the water, natural resources, agriculture, and land use. It's the biggest title, so we figure it must be the most important committee. And so natural resources and fishery covered watersheds. Forests are just not trees. We have the greatest trees on the planet, the fastest growing, highest quality, and we're wasting it. We're squandering it, and it's getting into our suburbs. And if I do anything in the next however many years that people send me there, it's going to be to better manage our forest. Thank you. Oh, Boice for Oregon.org. Nobody will outwork me. Nobody will care more.